Welcome to Graybeard Philosophy, bringing ancient wisdom and daily practice to the inner life and the wilderness as we journey, one practice at a time. I'm Dr. Brian Winsor. Today, I'm out in my gardens, not too far from Chattanooga, Tennessee. It's early evening, absolutely beautiful. My faithful companion, Carly dog, sleeping by my side on the ground, on the grass. And it's a beautiful evening to explore the second part of the attention economy. In part 2, we move from the distracted power of the swarm to the lure that captures us, even enslaves us, weakening our ability to choose our responses. Part 2, the power of lures, the Maka Feke. In the wilderness, some dangers do not chase, they entice. A lure succeeds not by force, but by intimate knowledge of the creature it means to catch. It appears in a form the creature already wants, fears, or cannot resist. And once the grasp is made, the danger is no longer mere distraction, it's capture. Now, somewhere on an island morning, before the sun has fully lifted itself from the water, a fisherman turns the Maka Feke in his hand. It's a small and plain device at first glance, more cunning than beautiful, made of stone and shell lashed together with braided fiber. In some forms, it resembles a little rat, compact-bodied with a trailing fiber tail and a rough suggestion of life in its shape. In others, it's more bare than that. It's more elemental, a smooth sinker dressed with spotted shell and movement. But that's the point. It doesn't need ornament. It only needs to enter the water looking alive enough to awaken the octopus's instinct. The Pacific Island seas are not empty to the fisherman. They are inhabited, storied, known. He's lived long enough with these waters to read their surfaces and their silences. He knows the ledges where an octopus keeps to shadow. He knows the patience of the creature, the suddenness of its reach, the instinct by which it gives itself away. He doesn't cast blindly. He doesn't trust chance. He works with an intimate knowledge born of tradition, observation, and long attention. So, he lures the Maka Feke into the water and moves it with just enough life to invite, restrained enough to persuade. And below, hidden among rock and weed, the octopus watches. It doesn't rush because it's foolish. It reaches because the lure has entered its world in a form that feels compelling. It rises, extends itself, and at last wraps around the Maka Feke with a grip both intelligent and instinctive. That's the moment the native fisherman has been waiting for. Not mere notice, not a glance, the grasp. And here's the strange power of the thing. Once the octopus has wrapped itself around the lure, it doesn't easily let go. Even as it's lifted from the water that formed it, even as it's drawn upward toward a world not its own, it clings to the very thing that's carrying it away. There's something severe in that image, something difficult to look at too quickly, because mosquitoes only explain part of the modern condition. They explain annoyance. They explain erosion. They explain the 1,000 small bites by which attention is thinned and patience worn down. But the Maka Feke tells a deeper truth. It tells of entanglement. It tells of a lure shaped with intimate knowledge of the creature it intends to catch. It tells of desire not merely interrupted but enlisted. It tells of the terrible nearness between what attracts us and what can carry us away. That's why the attention economy can't be understood as mere distraction. It's not only a buzzing at the edges of awareness, it is also a patient study of human instinct. It learns what stirs us, what flatters us, what frightens us, what angers us, what promises relief, what offers belonging, what awakens outrage, what quiets loneliness just long enough to make us want more. Then it shapes the lure accordingly. Like the Pacific Island fisherman, it doesn't succeed by force first. It succeeds by knowing the creature. And once the grasp is made, the danger changes. We're no longer merely interrupted. We are part of it. We have wrapped ourselves around something. We hold to the very thing that is taking us somewhere we did not intend to go. That's the threshold of part 2. In part 1, we walked through the swarm. We felt the abrasion of small miseries and the way irritation can work on the soul until relief feels more urgent than wonder. But part 2 asks for a harder honesty. Not simply what's biting at my attention, but what am I reaching for? What have I wrapped myself around? What has learned me so well enough to bait my own instinct back at me? This is where the wilderness grows quiet and searching. The mosquitoes still whine at the edges, but now we've come to the waterline, where something more deliberate waits below the surface. Now we turn to lures. In the wilderness, some dangers don't chase, they entice. A fish turns toward the flicker of a lure. An animal follows scent into a trap. A predator mimics a cry that stirs instinct before judgment can speak. A thirsty hiker sees crystal clear water and wants to drink, not yet knowing or caring that sickness may be waiting in what looks pure and harmless. The modern lure system is not merely taking attention, it's shaping desire in order to get it. That's the deeper danger of the attention economy. It doesn't only distract, it redirects away from presence toward consumption, away from intention toward compulsion, away from inner authority toward behavioral steering. That's why the language of lures matter. A lure is not accidental. It is made to catch something. And the lures are not all the same. They work through different openings in the self. Some are shiny lures. They work through novelty. A trout cannot help but turn toward the flicker. Human beings aren't so different. Something new, something urgent, something shocking, something you might miss. The shiny lure hijacks orienting instinct. Some are baited traps. They work through craving. A trap is coated with scent because prey follows appetite before caution. The modern versions are just as familiar. The desire for dopamine, for certainty, for belonging, for power, for comfort without discipline. Craving outruns judgment, and the person begins walking toward a trail never meant to be theirs. Some are mimic calls. They work through fear and outrage. Predators have long known that instinct can be stirred by the imitation of distress. Modern equivalents are everywhere. Outrage headlines, breaking news, fear-based notifications, identity threats, conflict bait. Fear narrows attention. Outrage simplifies judgment. Both make the mind easier to steer. Now some are honey traps. They work through ego. You deserve this. You're right and they're wrong. People like you understand what others miss. Here the bait is not fear but flattery. And once a person begins feeding on flattery, identity itself becomes more pliable in the hands of whatever keeps flattering it. All of this presses toward One uncomfortable but necessary question. What bait works on me? Not on people in general. What bait works on me? What turns my head? What steals my presence? What outruns my principles? What fear narrows my clarity? What grievance keeps me warm enough that I do not want to put it down? What form of flattery makes me easiest to be led? These are not merely technology questions. They are wilderness questions. And they all return us to the same place, base camp. Now, if liquid modernity is the weather and the attention economy is the baited trap, then the issue is no longer only what is happening out there. The real issue is what all of this is doing in here. Base camp is the residence of the self. It is the inner place where attention is either governed or scattered, where desire is either understood or indulged, where fear is either named or obeyed, where conscience either remains awake or is quietly put to sleep by repetition. When the conditions of modern life become more invasive, base camp becomes less like comforting metaphor and more like a guarded gate. And once we see that, the question changes. It's no longer what is distracting me. It becomes, what am I permitting into base camp? What is it cultivating in there? What version of myself is it training? Because the great danger of the attention economy is not merely lost time. The deeper danger is inward deformation. A person can lose an hour and recover it, but when distraction becomes habit, and habit energy becomes appetite, and appetite becomes governance, the loss is no longer measured in minutes. It's measured in diminished freedom. This is where Thich Nhat Hanh becomes such an important companion for me. When the mind is overstimulated, baited, restless, and reactive, he doesn't begin with condemnation. He begins with return. Return to the breath. Return to the body. Return to the present moment. Return to the place where the mind can see what it's doing before it obeys every impulse that passes through it. That matters because the attention economy thrives on reflex. It doesn't need me to think deeply. It only needs me to react quickly. It doesn't need me to choose deliberately. It only needs me to grasp automatically. Mindfulness asks the questions the lure does not want asked. What's happening in me right now? What did that stimulus stir up? Is this craving, fear, vanity, loneliness, anger, jealousy, despair? Is this bringing peace or feeding inner noise? Am I about to choose or am I about to be carried away? That's one reason Buddhist teaching has become such a useful guide for me in the modern wilderness. It gives me simple language for something that many people feel they cannot name. The mind becomes crowded, and once crowded, it becomes easier to govern from the outside. Mindfulness is not an escape from the wilderness. It is one of the ways we avoid carrying the wilderness inside of us. Notice the bite, but don't bite yourself for being bitten. Notice the lure, but don't add shame to craving. Just return, breathe, see clearly, and choose the next small, truthful step. That spirit matters because most people don't need more accusation. They already know what it feels like to be distracted and baited and overstimulated and disappointed in themselves. The work is not to make ourselves feel worse. The work is to become more honest without becoming more harsh. The attention economy doesn't usually knock a person off trail all at once. It turns us by degrees. A headline catches an irritation. A feed exploits our loneliness. A notification stirs our curiosity. A comment hooks our outrage. A pulse of affirmation feels like nourishment, and before long, attention is no longer walking by principle. It's being led by whatever stimulus shouts loudest or flashes brightest. That's why this condition is not only about distraction, it's about direction. A person can lose a trail by one dramatic mistake, but more often a person loses it by small deviations repeated long enough that drift begins to feel normal. The same is true inwardly. We don't usually lose integrity in one great collapse. We lose compass bearing through 1,000 small yieldings, tiny movements of attention, desire, ego, and fear that go unexamined. So, the deeper question isn't simply, did this distract me? It's, did this turn me? Did it turn me away from presence, away from steadiness, away from truth, away from the next right thing, and away from the person I mean to be? Every lure becomes a small directional test. Should I click this? Should I answer outrage with outrage? Should I keep feeding this grievance because it feels energizing? Should I keep reaching for stimulation because I don't want to sit inside my own inner life? Should I follow this emotional tether a little further? These aren't dramatic failures, but they are directional decisions. And over time, direction becomes destiny. That's also where dignity returns. Because if the lure can turn me by degrees, I can also correct course by degrees. I can notice the pull. I can name the agitation. I can pause before grasping. I can refuse the click, the outrage, the vanity, the reflexive reach. I can return to breath. I can return to base camp. I can maintain my bearing. That doesn't make me immune to the wilderness. It makes me responsible within it. And it matters because what governs me privately doesn't stay private. What I repeatedly fall for becomes tone, attention, speech, patience, tolerance, and presence. It becomes what my family experiences. It becomes what my colleagues live with. It becomes what I model in every room I enter. What I grasp, others eventually live with. Let me repeat that. What I grasp, others eventually live with. Now that's why this matters. The wilderness of lures is not just trying to waste my time, it's trying to turn my soul. So the question I must keep asking is simple. What is trying to turn me now? And what would it look like in this moment to maintain bearing? My companion guide often is Thich Nhat Hanh. For part 2, Thich Nhat Hanh is the right companion guide for me. Marcus helped me in part 1 with the mosquito side of the condition, that restless activity, the distraction, the mind being whirled around. But part 2 moves deeper. Here the issue is not only the bite, it's the grasp. It's the moment when desire is stirred, the reflex awakens, and the mind begins to follow what it has yet examined. Thich Nhat Hanh brings us back to the one place where the lure loses some of its power, the present moment. He doesn't ask us first to condemn the craving or to scold ourselves for being hooked. He asks us to return, to breathe, to notice, to become aware enough of what is happening in the body and the mind that we're not simply swept away by it. That's why his counsel matters here. The lure works fastest when the mind is crowded and hurried. Mindfulness widens the space. It helps us see the bait before it becomes governance. It helps us notice the grasp before it becomes identity. And it gives us a way to remain human in a world designed to make us reactive. If Marcus studies the ruling faculty, Thich Nhat Hanh teaches us how to return to it gently and repeatedly. That is base camp work. Our internal practice, the lure and the grasp. Now remember, before beginning your base camp practice, we have to enter base camp. Base camp is not about solving anything yet. It's about returning to the inner place where choice becomes possible again. In the language of Buddhist practice, this movement follows a simple path. Stop, calm, rest, heal. First, we stop. Stop our forward motion for a moment. Stop your thinking. Stop the pull of habit energies. Stop as best you can the physical and emotional tension you've been carrying. You don't need to force silence. You only need to stop feeding the moment. Next, calm. Now we enter base camp by calming the body and the mind. Begin at the top of your head. Focus on relaxing your forehead, and especially those muscles between the eyes. Then relax your jaw, your shoulders, your arms, and feel the tension exit through your hands, through your fingertips. Then take 5 slow breaths. Breathing in, I am calm. Breathing out, I am restful. Breathing in, I am calm. Breathing out, I am restful. For 5 breaths. Next, we rest. Let the breath return to its natural rhythm. Let the body soften. Let the mind settle. There's no need to rush. From here we can heal. From this place, you're ready to look more deeply. Not harshly, not fast or hurriedly, but truthfully. Now we can continue into the practice. You might want to read or listen again with reflecting of one question. What bait works on me most reliable? Our reflection. Where do I most often feel the grasp happening? Is it novelty, outrage, fear, flattery, validation, belonging, loneliness? The need to feel certain, the need to feel important, the moment of boredom. When am I hooked? What happens next? Do I speed up? Do I tighten? Do I become more reactive? Do I lose presence? Do I keep feeding the thing even when I know it's thinning my inner life? What has been quietly turning me by degrees? Now, one small action for this week. Choose one lure that works on you reliably. When it appears, don't immediately obey it. Pause. Take 3 slow breaths and then name it plainly. This is a lure, and its name is. And then give it a name. Then choose one response you can respect. Delay the click. Put the device down, step away for 60 seconds. Return to the person or task in front of you. Speak more softly than your irritation wants you to speak. Refuse to feed the grievance. Read 1 paragraph of wisdom before opening the feed. Keep the action small, concrete, repeatable. Now your trail marker for this week. When the lure appears, I will return to base camp and maintain my bearing. Our closing. Hey, the mosquitoes still matter. Small bites, they still thin the mind and shorten the temper. We shouldn't underestimate the swarm, but remember, the deeper danger is not only what distracts us, it's what catches us. It's what learns the shape of our desire and enters our lives wearing that shape back to us. That's why this wilderness condition belongs in the larger path of graybeard philosophy. Liquid modernity, it's the weather that makes footing unstable. The attention economy, it's the lure that works on instinct and desire. Next, we will explore the validation treadmill, the hunger that asks what we trust to sustain us. Weather disorients, lures capture, hunger weakens judgment. All three reveal the same thing, the condition of our base camp. If this post has done its work, then the question going forward is no longer what distracts me. It's this: what am I feeding? What am I following? What am I allowing to shape my inner life? And when the lure appears, will I return quickly enough to choose the next step with integrity? Because remember, what we repeatedly grasp does not stay at the edge of life. It enters our soul, and whatever enters the soul long enough begins to shape the person who walks back down the trail. Hey, thanks for listening to Graybeard Philosophy. If this has helped you, stay with the practice. Small and faithful is enough. You can find the written version of this podcast at graybeardphilosophy.com. And until next time, be kind to yourself and learn something for the next trek.